Okay, and we are now live. Welcome, everyone, and thank you to those of you who have joined us on panel today. We are really excited for our YouTube live event, our Tweet and Talk for OnEd Student Chat. So before we begin, I'm just going to give a brief overview of OnEd Student Chat. This is a student-led Twitter chat that connects K-12 students across the province to discuss topics and questions related to character education, social justice, and citizenship. OnEd Student Chat creates opportunities for students to network with others, gain perspective, build relationships with new learning partners in a literacy-rich learning environment, experience social media as a powerful platform for learning, and establish a positive digital footprint. So we want to thank you again for joining us today. I am now going to introduce Rylin, one of our OnEd Student Chat leads, who's going to explain how the technology works and how you can join us and take part. Okay, Rylin.
So if you were watching the broadcast on YouTube, which is an option, you'll notice there's a comment space on your right where you can share your ideas and your thinking to get involved with our conversation. And you can also watch this broadcast on our website, and you can chat with us and other participants on Twitter. You can also follow the hashtag OnEdSSChat and read ideas, thoughts, questions shared by others. And you can use the hashtag OnEdStudentChat to share your thinking and get involved with our conversation. If you ask questions, we will bring them to the panel. Please remember that this audience is for K-12, so your comments, questions should be appropriate for all ages.
Great, thanks, Rylin. And now I want to take a minute just to introduce all of our panelists. And if you could maybe give a little wave as I call you by name. So I do want to start with our OnEd Student Chat leads. Today with us, we have Sam and Ella, and we have Rylin, whom you just heard from. And Catalina is joining us today as well. She's the newest member of our team, our bilingual member, so she will be participating, I believe, in both English and French today. And finally, I want to welcome our guest panelists today. We have grade 7 students from Rolla Tibshirani's class at All Saints High School in Canada, Ottawa. I'd like to welcome Victoria and Avery, if you could also give a wave. And now I'm going to turn things over to Sam and Ella, who are going to review our Tweet and Talk norms for today.
Hi, so our norms are 20 minutes to discuss one or more questions.
Please be mindful that the chat is open to students in K-12.
Active participation from classes who are watching.
All comments made during the chat should be positive and productive.
Everyone is entitled to their own opinion. You may not agree with something someone has said, but we ask that when challenging an idea, that you respectfully disagree with the idea, not the individual person.
Great, thank you very much. And we are now ready to get started. So I'm going to call on Sam to introduce our Tweet and Talk question number 1. And you will also see question number 1 posted in Twitter under the hashtag OnEdStudentChat. Sam?
So our first question is, how do you communicate with others without using words?
Okay, so who would like to answer that question first? Okay, you can just turn your mic on if you're ready.
I can.
Great, thanks.
So of course, you can talk to people in sign language, which is kind of like a way a lot of people talk when they can't. But also a huge thing is looks. Like I watched a movie recently called Shape of Water, and it was about a mute girl and a fish that can't talk. And throughout the whole movie, their chemistry builds by only looking at each other. Like if a smile can change someone's day, a bad look can change someone's day just as drastically. So yeah.
Those are really powerful examples. It is so true that we communicate and speak volumes in many ways using gestures and expressions. That's a really powerful example, Rylin. Thank you. Yeah, Catalina, go ahead.
Bonjour tout le monde. Alors, je pense que c'est important de communiquer avec notre émotion. Alors, comme Rylin a dit dans le film, le deux caractères communiquent avec la vision. Alors, je pense que ça, c'est un moyen de transmettre les émotions, et les émotions, parfois, sont plus importantes que le mot qu'on utilise. So I think that what Ryan has said about the movie is emotions is a really powerful tool to express what we think. So sometimes it's even more powerful than words. And just by looking at someone, we can transmit our emotions towards a person. So I think sometimes this is more powerful and more impactful than what we actually say.
Amazing. Thank you. And thank you again for sharing your response in both English and French, since we do have lots of French classes taking part today. Much appreciated.
Yeah, so we're thinking about body language and things, and how, like, if you can say two things and they can mean totally different things, like I'm okay and then I'm okay. So I think that gesture and facial expression is a lot of it, and also technology, typing is another part.
Yeah, as was just said, if like one look can like change your whole mood, if you can't, when you're in a situation where you can't communicate with someone verbally, the way they carry themselves, like a body language and gestures they use and their facial expressions, that ties a lot into it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's a common theme that's also coming out in Twitter here, that whole idea of how at 7B Westfield, there have been some tweets about body language and posture and how those can express a multitude of emotions. Very well said there, JK. And in eVoice class is also tweeting about how we communicate. And then they've referenced technology too, in response to what you were both saying, and that emojis are a great way to communicate as well without having to use words. So that whole idea of a facial expression. Any of our panelists want to tackle that question? Yeah, Catalina?
Aussi, je voulais dire que les émotions, qu'est-ce qu'on sent, c'est quelque chose de plus authentique, comme qu'est-ce que nous disons. So what I'm trying to say is that what we feel and the way we deliver a message is always more truthful than the words we say, because it's easier to lie in terms of what you say than in terms of what you feel. And it's easier to hide behind words than to hide behind your body language and signs. So that's why I feel like nowadays having emojis, it's a really cool tool to express something. So for example, if I say something and I want to, that would sound mean, I would add an emoji to let the person know I'm joking. So I guess it's a simple example, but that's how it works, using emojis as a tool to transmit an emotion with what you say. Alors, je pense que les émoticônes sont quelque chose qui doit être utilisé maintenant pour transmettre les émotions avec les mots qu'on utilise.
Thank you. You made some great points there. Sam or Ella?
Yeah, I have one thing to add.
Sure.
I hear adults all the time saying, "Oh, I don't like texting because I can't express my feelings with facial expressions." But you can with emojis. Like, it's just facial expressions, but just on technology.
Right. And I agree. And I mean, how many times I'm sure everyone on panel, and I would imagine everyone watching, has either sent or received the text message that was completely misunderstood because there was that absence in facial expressions to add to the meaning of the message. So I think you've all raised really great points here. Rylan, was there anything else you wanted to pull in from Twitter?
Yeah. Ashwin tweeted out saying, being a good listener is one of the best ways to be a good communicator. No one likes communicating with someone who only cares about putting their 2 cents in. And I thought, when I read that, I'm like, yeah, I really, really like that.
Absolutely. And that's a great segue into our next question. Sam, did you want to go ahead?
Okay. How important is listening in communication? Why?
Okay. Who would like to start us off? Ella, is that one that you want to dive into?
Sure. I think that listening is very important in communication. And I think that it's really important because you need to know what's their point of view when you're listening in like a conversation. When you're communicating with them, you need to know their opinion and what they think of something.
Okay, great point. Absolutely. It's hard to have a conversation when we don't know what the other person is thinking or feeling. Who else would like to jump in? Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, so we've also talked about how you're analyzing and making connections with what the other person is saying, and how when you're listening, you're showing respect to the speaker.
Yes, that's a great point, Avery. Victoria, did you want to add something?
So when you're listening to people, you're making, as Avery said, you're making connections, but you're also making connections into other subjects and to real world problems to see how you can do something or make something better.
Right, and I'm going to ask a question, send a question back to you. Why is it important to make those connections?
Because if you're on a topic, let's say global goals, if you're on a topic about the global goals and you're communicating with someone, you need to be able to communicate with them, build off of their ideas, and analyze data to solve a problem.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. Go ahead.
It kind of connects into deep learning as well, because like instead of just memorizing off a textbook or something, you're actually doing something about it. And I feel like that also helps you kind of remember what you're learning instead of just memorizing off a textbook.
Agreed. And those connections help build relationships,
Yeah.
right? And when we start to care about others, that's when we build and develop that empathy. And that empathy in many ways drives us to want to affect that positive change that you are speaking so passionately about. All right. Who else? Yep, Catalina.
So I'm really interested in psychology and how it connects with human behavior. So several days ago, I was reading about the concept of emotional intelligence, which is basically we don't have to be intelligent in terms of what we say. We also have to be intelligent in terms of our emotions and how we can react to certain situations. And in this case, I think that having the ability to listen, and more important, to interpret what you are listening to in order to have a discussion, is a very powerful and a very important tool in order to be able to have a discussion and to express your emotions and thoughts effectively. Alors, je pense que l'intelligence émotionnelle, c'est très important pour gérer ton comportement et pour comprendre comment tu dois écouter et utiliser l'information que tu as pour communiquer effectivement avec une autre personne.
Great. Thank you so much. We have a response from someone on panel.
Yeah. So, like listening in conversation is so huge, because sometimes if someone's having a problem, they don't want to hear from somebody else what they've done wrong, what they can do better. Sometimes they just want someone to just nod their head and say, yeah, and okay. And sometimes it's not even like getting an answer. They just want somebody to just hear them out.
Absolutely, and that's a really important point. It's sometimes when people are sharing something with you, they're not necessarily looking for a solution to the problem. They are just looking for someone to hear them, and that is a nice connection to some of the points being made on Twitter here. 7B Westfield is talking about, again, that value of listening, and that sometimes people just want to be heard. They just need someone else to know how they feel. They want to have that opportunity to feel connected and build that relationship. Mr. Dubueno's class is also tweeting about the importance of listening, and just that it's the feeling that comes along with it, right? That feeling of value when you know that someone is really engaged in that conversation with you, and whether that engagement is them communicating with you directly or whether that communication comes in the form of listening. Yes, Catalina.
So that's why I think it's crucial for us as listeners to understand when we have to give advice and when it's needed for us just to listen without judging or without expressing our feelings on the topic, which I also think it's a big part of having an effective conversation, knowing what to say and when to say it, and what type of listener that person needs right now. Maybe they need a passive listener, just someone to listen to their problems, or maybe they need an active listener, someone that could give some feedback to what they say. So I think that's actually a really big part in having a conversation and actually be helpful. Alors, je pense que c'est important de comprendre qu'est-ce qu'on doit faire. Est-ce qu'on doit juste écouter ou on doit écouter pour donner quelque chose pour aider cette personne, parce que parfois, les gens ont besoin d'une personne qui va l'écouter au lieu d'une personne qui va juste parler eux-mêmes pour une longue période de temps.
And thank you. That actually leads so beautifully into one of the questions that was just posted on Twitter, actually, by Ms. Kaufman's class. And they're asking, what kind of listener are you? And Catalina, you gave a great introduction to two different kinds of listening. And I was actually having a great conversation with a colleague of mine, Trevor Hammer, today. And we were talking about all the different kinds of listening that one can do. And I was quite surprised actually at how many different forms of listening. And I think we're familiar with that passive listening and active listening. Does anyone else want to comment on that on panel? Yep, go ahead. I'm sorry, I'm not sure who had their hand up first. Avery, you go for it.
Yeah, so my mom works with a lot of Aboriginal people, and one thing that they talk about is how we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. It's so that we listen, we're supposed to listen and respect others more than we talk. So kind of what Catalina had to say, but we need to kind of respect others before ourselves. Like we have to wait for them to, and also I think you said this too, but to not like be critical to someone's actual self, but to their idea, and to add on top, to build on it instead of just, and all ideas are good. So yeah.
I love that idea. And if I wasn't, I'm being a very active listener right now, and I want to be tweeting out what you're saying. So if someone out there is listening, I think what Avery just said, that whole idea about having 2 ears and 1 mouth, and that focus on listening is, I think, amplified and even made so much more important. So thank you for that. Thank you for that, Avery. Rylan, did you have something else you wanted to share?
Yeah, I just noticed something from Twitter. Someone said 7% of words that are actually 7% of words are actually spoken. 38% is in how words are spoken, like in the tone of voice, and 55% is in one's facial expressions and body language. And I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, what an interesting breakdown and way to think about communication. Ashwin, thank you for that. That was really added a richness to our conversation today and provides a context for people to think about communication. Let's move on to the third and final. You want to go ahead?
I just want to have like a closing thought.
Oh, sure. Yeah, go ahead. Yep, Catalina, jump in.
Well, what everyone said is like, by listening to others and by understanding what type of listener we have to be, or how to combine both listening types, or many more we have, I think that talks about ourselves and helps us understand ourselves. So even if it looks like we are just listening, we might be starting a conversation about ourselves. So I think that's also really important to notice about what Riley said about body language and stuff like that. There's so much more than just words we say in terms of communication, and I think people try to neglect it a lot and focusing on what we say more than what we think, how we feel about it. Yeah,
that's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for adding that, just driving that point home. I absolutely agree. All right, Sam, if you want to move us along to question number 3.
Okay, so how do good communication skills help you at school, in life, and why?
Okay, so what do we think? Who'd like to start us off? All right, Catalina, go for it.
Okay, I feel like for me, it's a really relevant question because I'm grade 11 right now. I'm an IB student, so I do deal with a lot of things in terms of school, in terms of a lot of extracurricular activities I have to do besides actually doing well in my classes. So I think communication here for me is the key to success and like to keeping, I would say, even a good mental health, because being under so much pressure 24/7 and having always something due, having always something extracurricular I have to attend, like communication, even with my family, letting them know that I have this going on this week, so can you please go easy on my household chores, for example, or stuff like that, like just letting them know that I go through a lot. Like one time I was having 4 tests in a day and 5 presentations, and I was just overwhelmed, and just them knowing what I go through and my emotions about it, let them like cook a nice breakfast for me and warm up the car because it was winter outside, like just shoveling the snow so I can get out without having to do it myself. And that's in terms of my family. Also in terms of my teachers, and letting them know that I feel stressed about something so I can get some help. I feel like for me, that's what helps me survive IB and like not go crazy about it. Alors, je pense que la communication, c'est très important pour avoir une bonne santé mentale parce que tu laisses de communiquer avec ta famille ou avec tes collègues de classe pour leur dire que tu as un problème et tu as besoin d'aide pour le résoudre.
Thank you, Catalina. Would anyone like to respond to that? You made some great points there.
So communicating skills at home and at school, they're similar but also different. Like at school, you need to be able to have like an interpersonal relationship with other people when you're collaborating in groups, but you also need to have an intrapersonal relationship with yourself so you can know how you work. So once you know how you work separately, you're able to like branch out and work with other people. That's like in school. And then whereas at home, it's like you are with other people, but it's not so much collaborating because like you're more relaxed. There's less work to be doing besides chores. And yeah.
You make some interesting points. Before we move on and I let someone respond, just for some of our younger listeners, can you explain the difference between interpersonal and intrapersonal, what those different words mean?
So intrapersonal, like with an A, is a relationship with yourself. So how you work, how you do things. And interpersonal is international, not international, but like it's like in groups. So you, one other person, like when you're working with partners or groups or with the whole class, that's an interpersonal relationship.
Great. Thank you so much. Avery, did you want to comment on what was said?
Yeah.
Or add to it?
Another thing that we've talked about is like unpacking your thinking at school and communicating like with giving constructive feedback, learning how to make mistakes, learning how to have your own voice. So yeah, like have a voice as your own perspective and know how to use it and say your opinion.
And that's important in both school and life,
Yeah.
right? Because school is real life.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
But you have different relationships and you're in different circles when you're at school. And I think you made some great points. Does anyone else want to comment on that or add to that on panel?
I can comment.
Great.
When you're in school and you're at home, having good body language and communication skills are great. But sometimes even watching other people's body language can tell you how their day's going. Like if my mom comes home from work in like a slump, I'll try not to do anything that annoys her. But if she comes home like happy and ready to go, I might ask her for something just because I know she's in a good mood. And it's the same goes for my siblings. And if I'm in a bad mood, people tend to like kind of leave me alone because they don't want the fury and wrath. But if I'm in a good mood, they know they can get things from me. So yeah.
I'll remember to very carefully read your body language before we have any conversation. Then I fear the wrath. You know, but again, you make some really great points there because we do read people and we read situations, and that affects our ability to communicate, to listen, and to be heard. And I think you're very smart. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Sometimes that can also backfire because they might look like they're in a happy mood and be in a bad mood, or look like they're in a bad mood and be in a happy mood. So it's like a gamble almost.
Well, and I think that's why also you make a great point, and it's important to look at all of the different pieces together, right? Mm-hmm. So we have body language, we have facial expressions, but we also have that spoken or written word, or another form of communication. Maybe it's sign language. So how do we look at all of those pieces, and how do you weigh those pieces together to make informed decisions about either what kind of listener you should be or how you should communicate with others? Well said. Anything? Actually, Rylan, if you want to, there's lots going on Twitter right now, and I can't keep up. So if you have a moment to take a look, is there someone else on panel that would like to, Sam or Ella, if you want to weigh in?
Sure. So at school, like you need to have good communication skills. Otherwise, you can't really ask your teacher questions because you might get the wrong answer, like the answer you're not looking for, but you might think it is. So then you get the question or the worksheet wrong because you didn't get the right answer to your question. And then in life, if you don't have good communication skills, you can't get your point across, you can't talk to people easily, like you can't communicate.
Absolutely. And it's hard to get what you want or find success if you're not able to, yeah, I see you nodding your head. Yeah, if we're not communicating well with others, right? And we all have goals that we're working towards. And if that communication breaks down, that affects our ability to achieve those goals.
Yeah.
Yeah, Catalina?
So just Sam said what I basically wanted to say, because just coming before this chat, I'm in a philosophy class first period, and we had a debate about art, and basically the topic was if art that infuriates someone should be removed or should not. And even having such a controversial topic and having, I don't know, 25 people with different opinions within a class, and you can see how some of them, even like we talk grade 11 kids, so we talk 17, 16 years old, and you can see how some of them have great communication skills and know how to deliver their points, and others that just, because they don't know what to say and they feel frustrated about it, and they don't know how to communicate their ideas, they just start behaving aggressively. I think that's why, as Sam said, it's very important to build good communication skills in order to succeed, even at the high school level or also in life.
Excellent point. Did you want to share that en français?
Oui, bien sûr. Alors, je fais un débat dans ma classe de philosophie, et je peux voir comme quelques enfants, ils savent comment communiquer, comment dire leur opinion et idées, et ça va être effectif, et les autres qui ne savent pas comment le faire, ils deviennent agressifs parce qu'ils ne peuvent pas partager leurs émotions et idées avec les autres.
Merci. Ella, did you want to add something as well?
Sure. So I agree with everyone's points here, because everyone has made such great point, and everyone's had great points of view. And I agree with how you need communication and you need a voice for school and you need it in life, because, well, you just need it, because you won't, I don't know how to explain it, but like, if you don't have a voice, you can never give your opinion, you can never be heard.
That's right. And you won't really go very far if you don't have that skill set to communicate what you want, right? Because part of reaching those goals is knowing and understanding what you want. So Ella, I have a quick question for you. So how do you communicate differently with your friends compared to, let's say, your family or your teachers? What's different about that communication?
What's different for me is that when I'm with my teachers, I will act like myself, but I mean, not as much as I would with my friends. My communication is differently, because when I'm with my friends, I'll just go out and say my ideas, because I know that they won't think that like I'm stupid or something. And then like with my teacher, I'll say my ideas, but not as much as I would with my friends, because what I find is when you're with teachers, you're kind of more afraid that you'll get the wrong answer or something like that.
I understand where you're coming from, and I do want to make sure that no teacher would ever think you were stupid. Ever, 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 ever.
I don't
But I understand what you're... No, never. I understand what you're trying to say, though, and there's definitely a difference between having a casual conversation with your friends, and I communicate very differently with my friends when we're in that casual social setting compared to when I'm at work. So there's that professional level of conversation, which I think is what you're referring to, Ella, when you talk to your teachers. And you definitely spend more time maybe and put more thought into the words that you choose and the facial expressions that go along with what you're saying and that tone of voice when you're speaking with an adult. Compared to when you're with your friends, you can just be yourself and let loose, and it doesn't matter what you say because they're your friends and they love you and they won't judge you. And there is that difference. So I hope that I've articulated what you were trying to express. Am I on the right track?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay, right. Thanks. Rylan, do you have anything to add from Twitter before we wrap things up today?
Yeah, I do. I just got to find the tweet.
No problem.
So 7B at Westfield said, good communication at school is helpful because you learn how people work and what they need help with and what they understand. 7B said, again, the best way to use good communication skills at school are mostly to ask questions and discuss the topic when you are having trouble understanding, and when you're in groups or in partners to discuss what the plan is and how to finish. And yeah.
That's excellent. Yeah, I'm watching some of the conversation go through here on the back channel, and there's some interesting points being made by Mr. Dubuono's class about the difference between texting and talking face to face, and the benefits and the shortcomings of each. And one of the comments and conversations that's happening is the fact that technology allows us to now connect and communicate with people all over the world, whereas those face to face interactions are limited to people in your close space. So if you want to check out more of that conversation, you can do so on Twitter by following our hashtag #OnEdStudentChat. So I'm going to wrap things up today and thank our incredibly talented guest panelists here and our OnEd Student Chat leads for another incredible OnEd Student Chat tweet and talk. We have our K-6 chat coming up after March break on Tuesday, March 20th at 9:30. So if you're in grades K-6, we do have an hour focused chat around the topic of communication, and all the questions are posted on our website. And the last 2 weeks of every month, we host a K-12 slow chat, so you can join us every time when it's convenient for you in and around your schedule. Questions are being asked, ideas are being shared, and there's incredible conversation happening all month long. And to wrap things up, you can find us on Twitter at OnEdStudentChat, or you can find us online at our website, onedstudentchat.com. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us. Student leads, if you want to turn your mics on, and our guest panelists, if you want to turn your mic on and say goodbye to everyone, we'll wrap things up for today. Thanks again.
Bye.
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 Bye.